In this video, we're going to look at how to split a data set into three partitions: train, validate, and test. So again, I'm going to go through what's in your textbook, and then I'll show you an alternative which is a lot simpler. Okay, so we want, say, 50% training, 30% validation, and 20% test. That's how we want to partition. So the first step is the same as what we did previously in train rows, right? So I'm just copy pasting it. So all you have to do is to change that to 50%. Okay. So now that's going to give you the train rows. Okay. Now valid rows, okay, so from the remaining we have to select 30%, and we want to use that for validate. So what we have to do is, okay, so we're going to use the set diff. Okay, so in the previous case we just simply did set diff and that was it, so because we wanted the entirety of the difference. But now we want to take the set diff, we do want to do that, right? Valid rows set diff. Okay, so copy paste that, but then we want only, so valid rows is not that. We want to sample from this only 30%, right? So we have to then say sample, okay, from that. Okay, so from that we want to sample 30% of that. Instead of so instead of 50% of dim, we want 30% of dim. Okay, so that's going to take the difference. So take away train rows and the balance, and then we're going to do 30% of that. Let's check whether we have the parentheses all correct. All right, looks okay. So now that's our valid rows. Okay. Now the rest of it must be, so now we have taken 50% train rows, 30% valid rows, and then now we need to figure out the rest of them. Okay, so again we do a set diff, okay, like before. So we have test rows, we do a set difference, okay, and we have row names of housing DF. Okay, so from that, okay, we want to throw away all the rows in train and all the rows in validate, right? So we want all of those rows, so we have to join them. So we do a union of train rows, comma, valid rows. Okay, so this set difference will take the row names of housing DF and throw away the train and validate. So the remaining will be the test rows. Okay, so now we have all three. Now we can create those three sets. Train data is housing DF of train rows, and then comma, and then valid data is housing df of valid rows, comma, and then test data is housing df of test dot rows. Okay, so those three will now create the three. Okay, looks like, yeah, see, I didn't have a comma here, so it gave me an error. So I run that. So now we have all the three. Okay. Now this is what is in your textbook. An easier way is to do what we did here earlier when we did partition into just two sets. Now we have to generate three numbers. So what we're going to do is so we're going to assign 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so those are the three numbers. We're going to generate a random a column of numbers, right? And those numbers are going to be either 1 or 2 or 3. Just one column. Okay. So we want 50% of them to be 1, 30% of them to be 2, and 20% of them to be 3. So then we can select all of those rows with 1s into training, all of those rows with 2 into valid, and all of those rows with 3 into test. So first thing to do is we have to generate a column of numbers. So we'll call that row index, right? And we want the row index, okay, we want to sample that. We're going to generate a sample of numbers. All right. We want to generate a sample of numbers from 1 to 3. Okay, so let's do, if you do sec 1 comma 3, so you get what? 1, 2, and 3 sequence. So those are the three numbers, and we're going to sample from these three numbers. Okay, so how many we want? Okay, we want to generate 5,802 numbers. So that is n row housing df. Okay, so that's the total number. Okay, and we want the probability. Okay, so we have three numbers, right? 1, 2, and 3, and we want the probabilities to be, and we have to give this as a list. So 0.5 comma 0.3 comma 0.2. Okay. All right. So now one important thing we have to do is the sequence is 1, 2, and 3, and as you generate 5,802 observations, so you should allow the numbers 1, 2, and 3 to be repeatedly sampled, which means you need to be able to resample again and again. So replace should be, so there is a command called replace to be true. So that means the numbers 1, 2, and 3 can be repeatedly sampled from, and 50% of the time it'll be 1, 30% will be 2, 20% will be 3. And now this is going to only generate a bunch of numbers, 5,802 numbers. Okay. Some of them will be 1s, some of them will be 2s, some of them will be 3s, and of course 1s will be 50%, 2s will be 30, and 20%. Okay, so here is your row index. You see there are 5,802 of them, and these are the numbers. Okay, so now that we have 5,802, and 1, 2, and 3s, okay, we can then do it. Train data is housing DF. Okay, from housing DF, we want to select the rows. Okay, so we say row index. Okay, so that's the row index. So that's the bunch of 1, 2s, and 3s. So row index. Okay, we're going to condition it. We're going to say row index is equal to 1, right? So now this is a test, right? So we are testing whether it is 1, 2, or 3. So when you do a condition, we use two equal signs. The two equal signs means we are testing. We are not equating a row index to 1, but we are checking whether the row index is 1 or not. Okay, and then comma means, and we don't specify any column name, so all columns will be selected. So this is going to select all of those rows with row index equal to 1 and then set it to train, and valid will be housing DF. Okay, row index is 2. Okay, and then test data equal to housing DF row index, okay, 3 and comma. So now if you run that, then we will have the 3 partitions. Okay, I don't know, maybe you think that the book version is easier than this, but I find this one to be easier to set up.